Valmiki Ramayana, Bala Kanda, Book 1, Canto 43, Canto 44, Sarga 44, Chapter 44. The Descent of Ganga. The Lord of Life, the skies regained. The servant king a year remained, with arms upraised, refusing rest, while with one toe the earth he pressed. Still as a post, with sleepless eye, the air his food, his roof the sky. Thou year had passed, then Uma's Lord, King of creation, world adored, thus spoke to great Bhagirath: I, well pleased, thy wish will gratify, and on my head her waves shall fling, the daughter of the mountain's king. He stood upon the lofty crest that crowns the Lord of Snow, and bade the river of the blessed descend on earth below. Himalaya's child, adored of all, the haughty mandate heard, and her proud bosom at the call with furious wrath was stirred. Down from her channel in the skies with awful might she sped. With a giant's rush, in a giant's size, on Shiva's holy head. He calls me, in her wrath she cried, and all my flood shall sweep, and whirl him in its whelming tide to hell's profoundest deep. He held the river on his head and kept her wandering where, dense as Himalaya's woods, were spread the tangles of his hair. No way to earth she found, ashamed, though long and sore she strove, condemned until her pride were tamed, amid his locks to rove. There many lengthening seasons through the wildered river ran. Bhagirath saw it, and anew his penance dire began. Then Shiva, for the hermit's sake, bade her long wanderings end, and sinking into Vindhu's lake, her weary waves descend. From Ganga, by the gods set free, 7 noble rivers came, Hladini, Pavani, and she, called Nalini by name. These rolled their lucid waves along, and sought the eastern side. Suchakshu Sita, fair and strong, and Sindhu's mighty tide. These to the region of the west with joyful waters sped. The seventh, the brightest and the best, followed where Bhagirath led. On Shiva's head descending first, a rest the torrents found. Then down in all their might they burst, and roared along the ground. On countless glittering scales the beam of rosy morning flashed, where fish and dolphins through the stream, fallen and falling dashed. Then bards who chant celestial lays, and nymphs of heavenly birth, flocked round upon that flow to gaze, that streamed from sky and earth. The gods themselves from every sphere, incomparably bright, borne in their golden cars, drew near to see the wondrous sight. The cloudless sky was all aflame with the light of 100 suns, where'er the shining chariots came that bore those holy ones. So flashed the air with crested snakes and fish of every hue, as when the lightning's glory breaks through fields of summer blue, and white foam clouds and silver spray were wildly tossed on high, like swans that urge their homeward way across the autumn sky. Now ran the river calm and clear, with current strong and deep. Now slowly broadened to a mere, or scarcely seemed to creep. Now o'er a length of sandy plain her tranquil course she led, she held. Now rose her waves and sank again, by refluent waves repelled. By refluent waves repelled. So falling first on Shiva's head, thence rushing to their earthly bed. In ceaseless fall the waters streamed, and pure with holy luster gleamed. Then every spirit, sage and bard, condemned to earth by sentence hard, pressed eagerly around the tide that Shiva's touch had sanctified. Then they whom heavenly doom had hurled, accursed to this lower world, touched the pure wave, and freed from sin, resought the skies, and entered in. And all the world was glad, whereon the glorious water flowed and shone. For sin and stain were banished thence by sweet rivers' influence. First, in a car of heavenly frame, the royal saint of deathless name, Bhagirath, very glorious, rode, and after him fair Ganga flowed. God's sage and bard, the chief in place of spirits and the Naga race. Nymph, giant, fiend, in long array, sped where Bhagirath led the way. And all the hosts, the flood that swim, followed the stream that followed him. Where'er the great Bhagirath led, there ever glorious Ganga fled. The best of floods, the river's queen, whose waters wash the wicked clean. It chanced that Janu, great and good, engaged with holy offering stood. The river spread her waves around, flooding his sacrificial ground. The saint in anger marked her pride, and at one drought her stream he dried. Then god and sage and bard afraid, to noble high-souled Janu prayed, and begged that he would kindly deem his own dear child that holy stream. Moved by their suit, he soothed their fears, and loosed her waters from his ears. Hence Ganga through the world is styled both Janavi and Janu's child. Then onward still she followed fast, and reached the great sea bank at last. Thence deep below her way she made, to end those rites so long delayed. The monarch reached the ocean's side, and still behind him Ganga hide. He sought the depths which open lay, where Sagar's sons had dug their way. So leading through earth's nether caves, the river's purifying waves. Over his kinsmen's dust the Lord his funeral libation poured. Soon as the flood their dust bedewed, their spirits gained beatitude, and all in heavenly bodies dressed, rose to the sky's eternal rest. Then thus to King Bhagirath said Brahma, when coming at the head of all his bright celestial train, he saw those spirits freed from stain. Well done, great prince of men, well done. Thy kinsmen bliss and heaven have won. The sons of Sagar, mighty souled, are with the blessed as gods enrolled. Long as the ocean's flood shall stand upon the border of the land, so long shall Sagar's sons remain, and godlike rank in heaven retain. Ganga, thine eldest child, shall be called from thy name Bhagirathi, named also for her waters fell from heaven and flow through earth and hell. Tripataga, stream of the skies, because three paths she glorifies. And mighty King, 'tis given thee now to free thee and perform thy vow. No longer, happy Prince, delay, drink offerings to thy kin to pay. For this the holiest Sagar sighed, but mourned the boon he sought denied. Then Anshuman, dear Prince, although the bringer, the brighter name the world could show, no brighter name the world could show, strove long the heavenly flood to gain, to visit earth, but strove in vain. Nor was she by the sage's spear blessed with all virtues most austere. Thy sire Dilipa hither brought, though with fierce prayers the boon he sought. But thou, O King, earned success, and won high fame which God will bless. Through thee, O victor of thy foes, on earth this heavenly Ganga flows. And thou hast gained the meed divine that waits on virtue such as thine. Now in her ever holy wave, thyself, O best of heroes, lave. So shalt thou, pure from every sin, the blessed fruit of merit win. Now for thy kin who died of yore, the meet libations duly pour. Above the heavens I now ascend, depart and bliss thy steps attend. Thus to the mighty King who broke high foeman's might, Lord Brahma spoke, and with his gods around him rose to his own heaven of blessed repose. The royal sage no more delayed, but the libation duly paid. Home to his regal city hied, with water cleansed and purified. There ruled he his ancestral state, best of all men, most fortunate. And all the people joyed again in good Bhagirath's gentle reign. Rich, prosperous, and blessed were they, and grief and sickness fled away. Thus Rama, I at length have told how Ganga came from heaven of old. Now for the evening passes swift. I wish thee each auspicious gift. This story of the flood's descent will give, for 'tis most excellent, wealth, purity, fame, length of days, and to the skies its hearers raise. Jai Valmiki Ramayana. Beautiful. Footnotes. Heaven, wind gods, Shiva, the lake Vindu does not exist. Of the 7 rivers here mentioned, 2 only, the Ganga, and the Sindhu or Indus, are known to geographers. Hladini means the gladdener, Pavani, the purifier, Nalini, the lotus clad, and Suchakshu, the fair-eyed. Amazing, beautiful chapter in British poetry by Ralph Griffith. Ramayana, Book 1, Sarga 40, 44, 43, 44. I will read now from the original Sanskrit translations. The descent of Ganga. Okay, let's see now this one. Valmiki Ramayana, Bala, Kanda, Book 1, The Youthful Majesties, Chapter Sarga 43, Introduction. ValmikiRamayana.net. Ganga descends to earth by the extraordinary effort of Bhagirath. Shiva agrees to a lighting of Ganga on his head, and from where she is released into a lake called Bindu Sarovar, and from there she flows in 7 courses. On land, Bhagirath ushers her up to nether world, dug by his ancestors, where heaps of ashes of his grandparents are there, and she enters accordingly to inundate those mounds of ashes according salvation to the souls. Okay, these are original verses. Again, you notice it starts with Rama, O Rama, because Rama is the essence of Ramayana. When the god of gods, Brahma, left from there, Bhagirath stood on the tip of his big toe, praying for the mercy of Lord Shiva for 1 year, while that tip of his big toe pressurized the earth. Thus Vishwamitra continued his narration about Bhagirath's effort to bring Ganga to earth. Comment. Bhagirath stood on one big toe with an unwavering intent and bodily movement, and with his hands upraised in prayer for a period of 1 year by day and night, sustaining himself on mere air, and thus his yogic concentration increased, and that alone pressurized the earth. On completion of 1 year, he who is venerated by all worlds, the consort of Uma, and the god of animals from insects to humans, that god Shiva revealed himself and spoke this to the king. O best one among humans, I am delighted with your unwavering effort, and I will fulfill your cherish. I will therefore sustain Ganga, the daughter of King of Mountains, by my head. Afterwards, she who is reverenced by all the worlds, and who is the elder daughter of Himavanta, that Ganga, assuming an unendurable form and an insupportable rapidity, they say, then plunged from the sky onto the auspicious head of Shiva. She who is extremely unendurable river, that goddess Ganga even speculated, saying to herself, "Let me enter netherworld, indeed, whisking Shiva with my streams." Discerning her egotism, God Shiva is infuriated, and then on his part that three-eyed god Shiva thought to pen her up in the tufts of his head hair. And O Rama, she that holy river Ganga swooped down into the cavernous curls of matted hair tufts on the holy head of God Shiva, and she became a detainee in them. Though she strove hard in one way or another to reach the earth, that Ganga is rendered incapable, as she could not gain access for an outlet from any edge of the coils of matted hair tufts of Shiva. Hence, she is held there in durance vile. Goddess Ganga whirled round and round in the coils of tufts alone for many number of years, and when Ganga's emanation from those coils is intangible, Bhagirath again firmed up in a marvelous penance in the matter of her descent to earth. O Rama, the legatee of Raghu, with that ascesis of Bhagirath, God Shiva is very much delighted, and thereupon he has also released Ganga, aiming at Bindu Lake in Himalayas. While God Shiva released Ganga into Bindu Lake, seven streams have emerged out of it, and thus three auspicious Gangas with holy waters have cruised eastward, which are known as Hladini, Pavani, and Nalini. Also thus Suchakshu, Sita, and the excellent river Sindhu are the other three rivers which streamed to the westernward direction with their holy waters. Of them, the seventh, Ganga, flowed towards the path of Bhagirath's chariot, and that great resplendent and kingly sage Bhagirath, sitting in a divine chariot, moved ahead, and even Ganga followed him. Thus Ganga came from heavens onto Shankara's head, and from there onto the earth, and there on earth her waters advanced with a tumultuous sound advancing them. Comment. The river Ganga is also called as Tripataga. She courses in three ways, of which one kind of thinking is that she flowed from Himalayas to heaven, from heaven to Shiva's head, and from there to earth. In the above context also she is said to have the three-way flow, i.e., one is eastward flow, second westward flow, and the third the southward flow, as led by Bhagirath. The westward river Sindhu is the Indus, and the eastward Nalini, which is now called as river Brahmaputra, while Ganga proper courses a little to south to move towards the ocean. The earth then verily shone forth with the shoals of fish, schools of tortoise, and scores of porpoise, and other aquatic beings. They have already fallen, and that are still falling in step with the spades of Ganga. Later, they, the gods, sages, Gandharvas, Yakshas, and the assemblages of Siddhas, have then seen there the swoop of Ganga in that way from heaven to earth with curiosity. Some of the gods with aircrafts that are like cities in their shape and size, and some with horses that are prancing, and some with best elephants that are staggering. At the very sight of plunging Ganga, have entered the firmament at that place. The gods whose animation is unlimited and who are anxious to see the plunge of Ganga have come together in assemblages, which plunge is a highest marvel in the universe by better degree of her illimitable animation than that of gods who came to see, and even benignant to the world in according water and solving souls, which those gods cannot do. The glitter of the ornaments of hosts of gods who are in stampede made the cloudless sky to shine as if it is with 100 suns. At that time, with the falling and rising of scores of porpoises and reptiles, even with the wriggling fishes, the sky became flashy, as if flashes of lightning are strewn over it. Spattered innumerably with the whitish froth from the splashes of Ganga, and stippled with the flights of swans, the sky is as though overspread with silver clouds of autumn. Somewhere Ganga is cruising precipitately, elsewhere sinuously, somewhere else straightly, elsewhere sloppily, somewhere gushingly, and somewhere else her cruise is leisurely and tardily. Somewhere Ganga is coursing. This is second translation. Somewhere her water, repeatedly knocking against her own water, is recurrently billowing upwards only to make nosedive onto earth. That impeccable and immaculate water of Ganga then became outstanding as it has flounced down from heaven primarily onto the head of Shankara, and therefrom it has coasted down onto the earth, and asserting that water as holy because it descended touching the body of Shiva, the head of Shiva, the assemblages of sages, Gandharvas, and those that are residents on the plane of earth, have sipped that water at that place. Also, those that have fallen from heaven onto the surface of earth by some curse or the other, they too became blemishless on taking head bath in the water of Ganga. When sins are washed away by the hallowing water of Ganga, they again transited skyward, transited skyward, and then obtained their own Empyrean worlds once again. With her splendorous water, people are blissful, and on taking deep baths in Ganga, they are totally removed of the strains of their sins, and they lived blissfully ever after. In this way, the great resplendent and kingly sage Bhagirata, sitting in a divine chariot, continuously moved ahead, and Ganga continually followed him at his behind. Comment. This verse is almost similar to the verse number 14 above, but here the continuous action of both the leader and the led are implied with ellipses in this way and continuously. O Rama, of all the gods, along with the assemblages of sages, orcs, monsters, demons, and even great reptiles, with Kinnaras and Gandharvas, with best yakshas, and even serpents and apsaras, have delightfully moved after Ganga, who is following the chariot of Bhagirata, and why they, in fact, all of the aquatic beings have followed Ganga. In whichever direction King Bhagirata has advanced, the glorious river Ganga, who is the prominent river among all the rivers, and the complete obliterator of sins, has also moved at his behind in that direction. While in flow, she started to completely inundate the field of Vedic ritual belonging to the great-souled sage Janu, who is of marvelous deeds and who is presently an officiator of an ongoing Vedic ritual. But on knowing her hubris, O Raghava, that sage Janu has become irritated, and causing an extreme marvel, he drank off all the water of Ganga. Thereupon the gods, along with Gandharvas and sages, at that extremely marvelous feat of sage Janu, are highly astounded, and they then started to worship that a blessed human and great-souled sage Janu, and even deigned for the daughterhood of Ganga to that high-souled sage Janu. That greatly radiant and godly sage Janu is then delighted and released Ganga from both of his ears. Therefore Ganga became the daughter of sage Janu, and she is also renowned as Jahnavi, after the name of that sage. Even though Ganga again proceeded moving behind the chariot of Bhagirata and reached the ocean, therefrom she had to wend her way to nether world. Once dug by the sons of Sagara, only to accomplish the mission of Bhagirata, namely drenching the ashes of Sagara's sons. Comment. Some take the word Sagaram as the netherworld dug by the sons of Sagara and omit the mention of her ocean-bound travel. Even kingly sage Bhagirata, making every effort, ushered Ganga to netherworld, but on seeing his grandparents rendered to ashes, he has become doleful. O Rama, the best of Raghu dynasty, then Ganga inundated that mound of ashes of Sagara's 6,000 sons. Should be 60,000 sons, by which those souls obtained heaven, while the sins of souls are cleansed with the water of Ganga. Thus Vishwamitra continued his narration. Jai. Valmiki Ramayana ki Jai. This was the most beautiful description of the descent of Ganga, the holy river Ganga, the holiest of the holy. The descent of Ganga. Haribol, Hare Krishna. Ciao.